What's up, Kurt? Ooh, why do I look so blurry today? Does that help? Not really, huh? Oh well. New Orleans. Well, good morning to you, sir. It's the evening here in Thailand, where I still am. And we'll try this out for a time. We'll see we'll see if people come. This might not work for a time for people. Yeah. Right now it's 9 p.m. It's 9 p.m. in Thailand. Which is tough. That's why, so the ones I was doing on Friday, I was doing it for me. I was doing it Saturday morning, so I was like getting up early so I could do them Saturday morning. Since I guess most viewers are U.S. viewers, so they were still U.S. viewers were still checking it out on Friday night. Let's just say that's kind of a good time. When I was doing it at 8:30, that would have been 7:30 p.m. for you, so you'd have been good there. But we'll see if it's in the morning in the U.S. We might not get too many people chiming in. So we'll see. We'll give it a few minutes. We'll see how many people show up. If it's just a few, I see there's one other person in here. Who else is in here? Can I view? Can I see? Is there a master list? I think there is. Oh, one of them is me. That's funny. Yeah, it's me. I'm the second person. I mean, if it's just you and me, Kurt. Yeah, it might not be good. People might be doing other stuff on Sunday. Maybe I should have done a poll before just doing this, but I see it has 2 likes. So like somebody else liked it, but isn't here. And it wasn't me. I didn't like it. It did say 2 people waiting, but I guess that was still me. Oh no, we got 4. All right, some people coming in. Ah, that's right. That's right. All right. Wait, it says 4, but it still just says it's the 2 of us. Yeah, it's a good question, man. So like there was like a very short period, like there's like I have like 1 or 2 super chats that's like um in limbo. So like I could apparently like turn it on again, but I have no way to receive payouts for it. Because like what I need to do is like they won't let me register this as a personal account. So like I have to go and open a business. Like I have to actually like file for an LLC or something. It's like only letting me record it as an organization for whatever reason. So like they want to have some kind of they want to have a like, I don't know, tax document or something as an organization provided, but I don't have one. Like, I'm not it's just like me on YouTube. Like, I don't have I'm not a representative of an organization, but for some reason they think so. So until apparently I send them that, like I try, and it's the thing, I like tried to deregister and be just like an individual user, but they won't let me do that. So I don't know. I'll figure that at some point. I guess somewhere along the way, I just have to, yeah. Yeah, that's right. They essentially want it. They essentially want me to have an LLC, or otherwise they don't want me to do it. So I have to do that if I want to do payouts or something. They say you're supposed to be able to do it as a personal account, but maybe they just stopped doing that. No, sure. Very slowly, we got some people trickling in, but I still can't see it. Still can't see. What's up, other people who are here? Yeah, Tom's here. What's up, Tom? Ooh, good question. Doge dividend. Doge dividend is an interesting question. Hmm. Yeah, like I'm not sure about the Doge dividend. Like I do think like if that does happen, if we get the Doge dividend, we might have a market situation that's going to look like 2020, 2021 again. Remember when everybody got $9,000? It was three stimulus checks, right? First one was in 2020. So Trump, I think Trump did one for 3K, and then Biden did two, or like it was like Trump did the first two, but the second one hit during Biden, and then the third one was Biden, something like that. I think it totaled like 9K. And that's, I think, responsible in large part for why we got that huge bull market in 2020 and 2021, just like people dumping the stimulus checks into the market um, in anticipation of either gambling or just like in anticipation of what's coming up with, inflation. So, yeah, well, that's the thing, right? And that kind of relates back to, I guess this here. That kind of relates back to like what we were talking about like 2 weeks ago with the inflation stuff. So when we had the inflation talk, like, so what's very interesting from the inflation side of things, right, is like you have like at the moment that you increase the money supply, right, in a very short span of time, it's like it's not necessarily noticeable, right? So what what allows inflation to be felt by the economy is the realization or distribution of the information that the money supply has increased and in relation to what's circulating. So like you could say like theoretically, right, like the mint can go ahead and create like you know double the money supply and just stack that money up like at the mint. But until that money actually circulates, it's not going to be felt by the economy in the sense that prices are not going to affect, or I should say, reflect the fact that you've produced all that money. It needs to actually go into circulation. People have to have it, spend it, make value decisions, right? Because they have to, their value decisions in terms of like how they are treating the value of the token, the medium exchange, that has to be worked into the system. So it's an information about value. And inflation, as most people think about it, as like, oh, prices are inflating, prices are going up when there's inflation. Inflation equals prices are getting higher. That doesn't happen until those decisions, those value decisions are being made, and the knowledge of what a dollar is worth, like what an individual unit of currency is worth in terms of the goods it can be exchanged for, gets distributed throughout the economy. So that's that. So like, let me say hello to some people here. Ken's here. Yeah. All right. Nice, man. What's up, Ken? Very good. We got people coming in. So yeah, so like with the stimulus checks, right? What happened, right? Just based on this comment here, like, screw paying bills, just pay stocks, right? Like most people don't think like, do I have enough money to pay the next 12 bills in a row? Most people don't think that way. Most people are, well, by definition, most people are not broadly conscientious. In the sense that like they think about, will I have enough money? Like, how much money am I going to spend 9 months from now? I don't think I even think, how much money will I spend 9 months from now? And will I make enough money in month 8 to pay for month 9, given that we're 9 months away? Like, people don't think that way, right? People want to know, people would like those that matter to be unconscious, in the sense of like, I know that every month I'm getting at least this much money. I have at least this much money, and I can, set a budget. And this is even very conscientious people. I'll set a budget, and then that way I don't, if I don't exceed the budget, I know I'm always getting this amount of money to pay for these things. Set. So like, they don't think about, okay, how am I going to pay bills? Right. That's what they think about. Some people like don't even figure out that much, right? They're just like, I overspent this month. Got to get a credit card to actually like, cover my expenses. And then they overspend and they'll be like, well, it's just, I'll figure it out next month. And then it snowballs. And that's how credit card companies make a lot of money. Most people don't think about, how do I structure my behavior such that the system as it is designed operates in my favor. Most people don't think of that. Most people will say, oh, for example, you get a windfall. Most people will treat that, and like, this is the case, right? Most people will see that money and go, oh, I have this extra money. What do I do with it? I already have enough to meet my bills. And this is interesting too, right? I did nothing to earn this money. I did not earn this money. This is literally free money. I had to sacrifice nothing for this. So, right, like, most people come to value their money based on what they have to do to get it. So people become conscientious about their money and about their spending based on how much it hurts them in order to get that money. So you'll find, right, that like people who, right, like, it's a difference, okay, between like an allowance, right? This is kind of the complaint, right, for people who are against like welfare and stuff, or if unemployment subsidies get too generous. People will say, like, when people go on, let's say, stereotypical welfare, that it doesn't improve their ability to balance to do a budget or a household budget or stuff like that. You have to offer education with that. You can't like teach people how to spend money, right? Don't just give people handouts, like employ them somehow, something like that, right? Direct them towards how to get a job or get employed or build a business or something like that. Because if they get free money, then it's the same thing as like, begging for money in the streets. Like, oh, I can just come back here whenever I want more money, and then, I'll just get that, and all I have to do is ask for it, and then I can go spend it on whatever. But if you have to pay a price to get that money, then you'll think more cautiously about how you spend it. So with 2020, 2021, with the stimulus checks, everybody had free money. And what seemed to be the case to me is that like the government did not anticipate, or maybe they did, wink, that how people would spend that. They all said, like, I remember hearing a ton of this back in 2020, 2021, that like we were going to be going into the frugal decade, that Americans with these stimulus checks, right, that they wouldn't be putting this money into the economy, that they would just be saving it. Everybody, they would just be saving it. They just take it and put it in the bank. And I don't know anyone who did that, myself included. I gambled it in the stock market, and lost every dollar. Back in 2020, 2021, that was my yeah, hey, hands up if you lost all of the free money that you got from the U.S. government gambling in the stock market. I think I can at least speak for myself. Maybe I don't know, half the nations in Central Asia. I don't know. Did they do that? Were they allowed access to the stock market with their free money? There was a lot of free money going around. But jokes aside, right? Right. So people went and put that in the stock market because number one, it was easy to access the stock market. And number two, they had money that they didn't have to sacrifice for. And the government also didn't, like, this was the other thing. The government did not necessarily give people guidelines on what the money was really for. Because the idea there was, all right, people who really need this to pay bills will be able to use this to pay bills if they really need it. People who don't need it necessarily to pay bills, well, we're going to give them this because we just inflated the currency supply. So we're going to give people of basically like lower socioeconomic standings, like we'll give people this money to basically offset how much value they're going to lose based on the inflation tax over the next couple of years. So we're going to give them $9,000, and that's essentially how much money will be taken out of what they already have, what they already earn. That'll subsidize their earnings for like 2 years, which will, if their salary doesn't change over those 2 years, then that's approximately how much money they'll lose out in terms of real value lost or purchasing power lost based on how much money was printed. And people who made over $75,000, I think the calculation was they wouldn't get that, or they'd get reduced amounts. Because if you're making over that amount of money, you probably are the sort of person who has access to investment channels that then allow you to basically avoid the inflation tax, or a meaningful dosage of the inflation tax, something like that. But then that's not what people did, right? Everybody who was just given free money went and gambled it. And so the people that didn't get the stimulus checks handed out by the government got it handed out to them basically by all of the people that had those stimulus checks. So it was spent on no bills. It was spent on ephemeral purchases. So like it went into buying video game consoles. Maybe that helped GameStop because it was a console cycle. It went to buying TVs. I noticed, like, I like talk to people who are just like, I got a TV, I got a PS5, whatever. I used to tell this joke when I was doing stand up. I just remember this joke. I was just like, yeah, stand up. So I was like, oh, COVID was awesome. Like everybody like got their stimulus check. They're like, what did you do with your stimulus check, dude? I was like, oh, awesome. I got a TV. I got PS5. I was like, sick. I got chlamydia. Twice. It was good. That was a good time. That was a good time. I don't do stand-up anymore. But that joke killed. That joke killed. You can use that if you want for your own stand-up careers. But anyway. Some of that stuff's still out there. I still have like some of those jokes, like they're on my Instagram, which is locked, so no one can see it. Or Facebook. You can probably find it on Facebook. But yeah, back before the stock market was rigged. But I mean, that's a pretty good segue actually into kind of what I wanted to do with these. We have enough people in here. A little 9 crew. 9 crew is good. Some people will probably come in. Some parts of the U.S. still waking up and whatnot. So I mean that's a pretty good segue into like what I wanted to do with these live streams. Like I haven't decided. I might do them at a different time. I know this is kind of early. Like, I don't know, people tend to watch YouTube later in the day, I guess it is. Just experimenting with some different times. But you know, I guess I'd like to do like I really liked, especially over the past couple weeks on Fridays, we've had some opportunities, especially 2 weeks ago, some opportunities to talk about topics that kind of move, like not necessarily don't necessarily focus on like daily price action stuff with GameStop, which hey, I'm still going to do all that. But to be able to kind of talk about some things that I consider to be important in terms of what's helped me develop my strategies or what's helped me kind of organize my life around making this work. Things that I found to be very helpful, ways of thinking or ways of looking at things I consider to be essential for the type of success I've been able to have. And I would like to share some of that as well, right? Because it can be easy to look at to look at trading or look at investing or look at finance or look at stocks or whatever and just be like, oh, in order to be maximally successful in this, I just need to get this part right. I just need to get the stock part right. I just need to get the GameStop part right. I just need to get the trading part right. I just need to get this right that's on the platform. And what really changed for me in terms of what I think why the first time around I tried this, and I'll share this in a second, right? I tried this once back in 2021. That was my trial by fire, and lost my money. And a large reason of that, or a reason for that, right, had to do with why I was investing, why I was in the stock market, why I was trading, and sort of what I had going otherwise in my life, or what the foundations for why I was doing that in the first place were, as compared to now, and sort of what I changed over the past few years, and what I'm still trying to change, and I guess what I'm experimenting with in order to try to make that work. So yeah, Ken, I wish I could put this up on the dashboard here. But Ken says, yeah, quote, I just need to do this one more zero DTE play. Yeah, man, just one, this one, just this one, right? I got into that. I'll share my story a little bit, right? So I started back I used to have this up on my Reddit page, and then it got deleted when my Reddit got banned. But right back in like 2020, 21, right? So like my background, right? I was getting my PhD, whatnot, was on a fixed kind of stipend, which was fine. It went up a little bit each year. So I think it started out, it was around like $28,000. And by the time I graduated after 7 years, it was like 33 or something like that. So, I mean, not an especially large amount of money to make per year, but single guy in his 20s, like that was fine, especially before COVID. Like, I don't know how you would live on that now. Um, that sounds impossible to me. In If you're living in a state like Connecticut, or just outside New York City, difficult. But that was kind of that was fine for me then, and I was studying to get my PhD in history and whatnot, and thought about academic career and whatnot. But I was like, okay, let me take. I got these, especially these stimulus checks. Took these stimulus checks, took some of my savings, and I was like, oh hey, let me get involved with this. Let me just give this a go. Like, more money would be cool. What could I do with more money? You know, Travel to new countries. I don't know, meet some more beautiful girls, something like that. Um, Maybe I'll just be cooler. I don't know. Why do you why do you necessarily get interested in that? So that was kind of the extent of my vision for what I was going to do with money, I guess, when I was 26. Was I 26 then? 26? Yeah, like 26, 27. And so yeah, just started doing stuff, and of course it was this crazy bull market, and just made you know t- 6, 7, 8x your account in like 2 months, and you're just like, is this how you do the stocks? Like, am I a genius? Right? This is everybody's a genius in a bull market kind of a thing. And so I started doing that, and um, I don't know, got super excited. The whole GameStop thing happened. Got fascinated with that. Got like, super, both combination of like scared and depressed with what was going on with the, stock price being crushed, and I was in and I was out. And I was like, oh, if I can just trade this, if I can just get these peaks right and the valleys right. And then I was like, okay, well, while I'm waiting, if it's down, while I'm waiting for this, I can go and I can, do something else, or let me mess around with penny stocks, or let me go try options, right? Let me do that and figure this out. And then it didn't work. And then it did work. And then it didn't work. And then, your account goes all the way down. It's to 1/10 of what it was. You're down 90%. And then you go that 110 DTE hits and it goes off. And then you 5X your account in an afternoon. And then, eventually after a few months of not getting that correct, you just end up at, your account goes from being like up 140,000 to down every dollar you have. And it's like, $600. So not medical advice. What's up, dog? Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Yeah. Well, but this is it, right? This is how it happens. A lot of people end up in these circumstances. Those are the circumstances I was in. And like, I kind of found myself after doing this for, it started to possess me, right? In the sense of how many months I was like, just staring at the screen, like needed to be at the charts. Like, not necessarily like I would call it an inefficient use of time with respect to the market, right? One of these like, got to be there when market opens, and then can't stop looking, deep into the after hours. So I would say, after doing that for like 2/3 of a year, and then losing all of my money, just being like, maybe I'm doing something wrong here, and like not just something wrong as like not just something wrong like maybe I'm approaching this whole investment thing wrong, but like maybe I'm approaching this whole kind of like life thing wrong. Maybe I shouldn't just like kind of go and spread myself out. Like, let me try to do everything. Cause that was the other thing too. I was like, let me try to do the finance thing. Let me try to finish my PhD. Let me, try to do a relation. Well, this was another thing too, is like, I was also for a while, in the state of, you know, I don't know, let me just see how many girls I can date, right? Not a great approach, right? Sounds cool, but then it very quickly becomes not cool. Very exhausting. Not to mention expensive to a certain degree in terms of time or attention. Um, you discover pretty quickly, oh, hey, that like maybe investing in one person, investing in one relationship, investing in sort of like, your attention is something that can be treated as an investment, right? You can approach it as an investment versus a trade or something like that. And yeah, so I started reorganizing my life in a lot of different ways for several years. I mean, don't have to exhaustively go into this right now, but I would say that a lot of the steps that I took and decisions that I made over those years then kind of made it such that when things started to pick up, right, with GameStop again, I had, I was kind of slowly keeping track of things and slowly thinking about like, okay, how could I do this differently? How could I do this differently? How can I make this work? How can I make this work? And for 2 years, like my biggest step after the first year of just losing all of my money was to be able to trade and not lose all of my money, right? That was I spent 2 years basically not really profiting, but at least not losing all of my money, which is a big step. And then it wasn't until like, finally saw this opportunity, like was waiting for stuff to like really figure out what was going on with GameStop. And then, kind of this past year, 2024 was the year that stuff clicked. And I decided to be like, okay, well, maybe kind of committing to one thing, like sort of committing to being in one place, committing to, one intimate relationship, committing to, one way of life, committing to one, let me just get really in depth into GameStop right now. let me make this one stock, like, it's special, right? There's something special about it. There's something special about it. In the same way that, like, right, um, in Christianity, right? The idea behind this is you're supposed to commit. It's lots of one commitments, right? You commit to being one person. You commit to not being, one person over here, but a different person over here, right? There's a sort of consistency of who you're supposed to be, and being accountable for your actions and committed to who you are across all the instantiations of you over time and space and relationships. Um, you only get one wife, or you only get one husband, and that's it, right? We play this a little differently, right, today, in our society, perhaps, but um, where we have various, right now we have divorce. I mean, that's not a historic part of Christianity, right? That's not historically a part of church policy. There's no divorce. Once you're married, you're married. That's it. You can get remarried if your spouse dies, but only if you're called to it. But yeah, no divorce, right? Once you commit, once you say yes, that's it. One spouse, one family, right? One set of offspring. You are father to one set of children, or you are mother to one set of children. You are husband to one wife. Your wife is wife to one husband, and you serve one God. You are a part of one church. So this is sort of what I started to see this stuff align, right? In the sense of, okay, like, it's not that there isn't possibility, right? Or perhaps the idea of being able to find value, right? Being able to find transcendent value and reach transcendent value, which is part of the objective of something like Christianity, right? Is to be able to reach the value that is above all values, to reach value that goes beyond any value that you are aware of in the earthly domain, right? It is a heavenly value versus an earthly value. To reach that as a human being, you have to invest your attention at a single focal point to as infinite a depth as you can. And there's guidance for that, obviously, and that can take many different forms, but the principle that underlies it is the same. And so I kind of saw that opportunity with GameStop, and a lot of the decisions I've been making with GameStop. I guess, I've chosen to describe the way that I approach GameStop as diversify in depth for that reason, right? Like I said, over 99% of my trades over the past year have been only GameStop. I'm invested in only GameStop, and I only trade GameStop on top of my investment. And I layer that in different ways in order to meet different goals, which is, another major component when I talk about, like, why organizing my life in the right way led me then to have this really balanced approach to investing, right? Yeah, same thing with short Fridays here. Right? Yeah, Kurt, you've shared your positions there. Can say that, can support Kurt's assertion there, from at least from anecdotally from screenshots. But yeah, I had to, when I approached GameStop, and I thought, like, okay, like, I can have long-term goals, medium-term goals, short-term goals, right? In the short term, like, I have bills to pay every month. Therefore, I want to trade GameStop in a way that allows me to have some stuff, like, every month, predictably, I can have something every month. Then I have, like, medium-term goals. I have some, big purchases that I am, over the past year, that I was looking to be able to have have an appropriate amount of money for, right? So part of the reason why I was like, okay, let me try and understand what's going on with, like, the Sneeze 2.0 or the Requel stuff. A lot of that was driven by me, right? With the idea of, okay, like, in the immediate future, so my fiance and I, have wedding coming up this summer, and I was like, it would be really awesome, like if I didn't have to like ask my family for all of this money. It'd be super cool, like if I could just pay for all of that, or and like not have to really tap too much into savings or like tap too much into my fiance savings or something like that. Like that would be really cool. I would be proud of myself to be able to do that. Um, so let me try to figure this out. Like, how could I make what are some things that I could do that would help me make the money for that? Like a specific goal. And let me make that kind of a medium term goal. But then okay, down the road, house, kids, being able to, help my parents build their retirement savings or something like that, right? To be able to maybe afford travel to see family members and friends. Like that's more long-term stuff, right? It's a little more it's down the road, it's a little more nebulous, it's a little less specific. So like GameStop for that too, but then that's the long thesis, right? That's the like multi-year, that's the 3 to 5 years transformation, GameShare stop away or slow ass or something like that. Whichever of these particular theories, but thinking about the same investment on multiple time scales and how to have that investment work, like how to trade, how to enter and exit that investment, how to use different instruments in order to leverage that investment based on short term, medium term, long term goals that you might have. And if I didn't, I guess, have these insights necessarily about depth or looking for trying to understand how depth works, or these claims about depth as being the path to transcendent value, that I had sort of come to understand through, right? I had spent basically 10 years getting an advanced humanities education, studying Christianity, studying the Renaissance, studying the Middle Ages, like studying Western civilization, like really in-depth studying Western civilization and trying to understand like why really did all of this happen? How did we end up here? How did we figure out, right? How did Western civilization just like figure out how to, breach space and time with all this? And as we have, like, I don't know if y'all know it, but like like scientists figured out like quantum mechanics, which is literally breaching space and time. If like cell phone technology and whatnot, like whatever's going on, like anything that uses quantum computing is literally breaching space and time. It does not operate on the level of the space-time continuum, as far as like right quantum entanglement and whatnot. So somehow we ended up there. How did we get there? How did that happen? What does that have to do with claims about value or attention or worship or devotion or whatnot? And so I guess part of what my objectives are is number one to kind of like share all this stuff that I see, because like when I think about this stuff and when I reflect on this stuff, like something will occur to me while I'm looking at something with GameStop, or something will occur to me. Like actually, like Richard Newton and I talk about this all the time. We'll talk about this stuff. He and I will talk about. We'll actually like I love what what he does, as far as like he does a Bible verse of the day, sort of a thing. Right, he spends maybe 5 minutes per video on that stuff and talks about like we'll talk about just exchange messages about how that kind of connects to what he's seeing with GameStop. And I was like, oh dude, they're like, yes, I see the same stuff. Like, how are you? Like this is amazing to find somebody who doesn't think I'm crazy. And he's like, yeah, I hope you don't think I'm crazy. I was like, I do not think you're crazy, because this makes the stuff you talk about, the sort of alignment between these things, makes sense to me. So I guess what I would like to do with this this other kind of live stream that we'll do, like I said, we'll find a time for it, but maybe Sunday is the time to do it. Is to yeah, what's up, Maxie? Yeah, welcome. Is to be able to talk about some of these things, to go through some of this. Can start with the Bible and work through that, not necessarily to be like, oh hey, let's preach or worship my God by name or something like that, not necessarily, but to be able to have an organized way to present some of these patterns and shapes and how they correspond to ways that I've organized my life and why I think that's been essential for me to have the success that I've had. And if you're, I don't know, interested in replicating my success in the domain of your life, or replicating the success of some of the people, I suppose, whose success I am trying to replicate, then hopefully that can be something that'll be useful and interesting for you. Um, you can let me know what you think about that live in the chat. Ken, I'm not familiar with my big toe. I do have two of those, but perhaps you can enlighten me. Oh no! Why do I think this is? Is this going to be like one of those things? Like, come on, Charlie. It's that video. Thomas Campbell. All right, Ken's going to look that up. Oh, okay. Oh, awesome, man. Yeah. Short Friday says, my dad has served in church every Sunday since I was born. I don't think he has missed one mass on a Sunday morning in 75 years. That's awesome, man. That is some dedication. Yeah, I love mass. I made a profession of faith. I was raised Methodist. I made a profession of faith in the Catholic Church. No, it was 2019, so almost 6 years ago. It'll be 6 years ago in Easter. But yeah. One of my other jobs too, right? That I did was as a freelance liturgical musician. So chant the mass, singing quartets, solo stuff, participate in the liturgy. So really love that. Yeah. I can't go too long without participating like that, or I just like life loses its luster for me. So yeah. Hey, cheers, Matt. Thank you, man. Thank you for your support. You guys want to see potentially wacky philosophy stuff that I write? Hungry Cat says, traveling to Italy late this year. Where should I go for the best collection of art, and where for lemons? Lemons. So, okay. Well, the famous place is Sorrento. They are just there. If you go to Sorrento, like if you just drive down the Amalfi Coast, toward like Naples, you can get to Sorrento, and they just have trees, and they just got the lemons on the tree. So that's what's famous for it. There probably are lemons elsewhere on the Amalfi Coast, but Sorrento is the top place for lemons. And then art collection. So the Uffizi in Florence are very well known for that, and then obviously the Vatican museums have quite a lot of famous art in them. So those are the two biggest ones. I would say that kind of a lesser one. There's also the Capitoline museums. In terms of like sculpture, the Capitoline museums is really good if you're into like classical stuff. In Rome, and let's see, then I also like the Galleria Doria Pamphili. That's a little off the. It's not off the beaten track. It's actually right at like Venezia. So like the stop there. It's in Rome, but it's the tram stop that is right in front of the Altare della Patria, so the altar of the fatherland, sometimes called the wedding cake. It's there. Galleria Doria Pamphili. I'll write it in the chat. That's also cool. George Thomas Campbell talks about us being in a virtual reality as avatars here to feed the higher consciousness. Yeah, consciousness stuff. Well, there is something, I mean, how would I say this? So I've talked about this, the concept in terms of like orders of, what would you call it? Orders of magnitude. Yes, I'll show you guys this image, right? Because I was writing this article earlier today, and I thought like, maybe I'll talk about it on the stream today. Not here, although we can talk about this. But something like with this image here, it's something like, right, a traditional idea that's contained. It's contained in some of the alchemical texts. Like it actually, is very influential for Newton when he was researching the cosmos. The Tabula Smaragdina, which means the emerald tablet in Latin. The idea of the microcosm and the macrocosm, or the phrase "as above, so below" is very popular with the alchemists. But basically, what it is, right, is it's pertinent to this idea of depth. And so, when it comes to the nature of the universe, you have various scaling orders of magnitude, right? So, like we think about, um, we kind of have the area that we consider to be familiar. This would be like in texts and whatnot, historically, or in the Bible, or you'll see this in early modern texts, sometimes referred to as the firmament. And if you would say the firmament, you'd basically say like this kind of dome of stuff that looks familiar to us. So, for example, in the book of Genesis, um, very often, right, when God is creating the heavens of the earth, there's something that's described that kind of sounds like a dome, and I think it even specifically uses that term, or the way it's translated is as a dome. But it's sort of the idea of like, we've got the order of magnitude, we've got the layer of resolution that we focus on a day-to-day basis that is very familiar to us. But then we have different orders of magnitude that are not necessarily perceptible to the naked eye, but that there is a part of us that can perceive of these different orders of magnitude. Sometimes it's represented as a mind's eye, like a part of that idea is contained in like the third eye in like Eastern philosophy, or in Western philosophy as the eye of providence, which is one of the symbols that I have for my profile. So a lot of people think it has to do with the Illuminati. It's co-opted from Christianity, so I don't know where it came from before Christianity. But the eye of providence is a triangle, and then in the center of the triangle is an eye, right? So it's on the U.S. dollar. Like I said, it's on my profile. So, but you'll find it actually if we go over to. We'll come back. We'll come back to this. Right. So this, right? This symbol is the eye of providence. So you'll have a triangle, an eye in the middle, and then there's like rays of light emanating from it, and it usually has some kind of translation of not usually, sometimes it has translation of the name Michael, translated out of the Hebrew. So Michael is a question in Hebrew, which means who is like God, which is both the name and battle cry of the archangel Michael when he cast down Satan from heaven during his rebellion with God. So the Eye of Providence is taken by, the Illuminati stuff or Freemasonry or stuff like that, but it's originally a Christian symbol that is aligned with the Archangel Michael as well, which happens to be my name. So yeah, so back to kind of Ken's point here, what this has to do with sort of orders of magnitude is like as complex systems. This is what I was thinking about in this article here. I think a lot about this with respect to the market too, because it is a complex system. It's a formal complex system. Basically, like you have orders of magnitude going up. So you might say like we have the firmament, we have right, we have like our level of seeing things, like the realm of kind of classical mechanics that we think about, human beings, grabbable objects, the environment immediately around us. And then we can kind of pop up in order of magnitude to be stuff like I don't know, like mountains, plate tectonics, things like that, the oceans. There's perhaps better to conceive of it as like layers of complex systems. So we might say that like the human being, we think of an individual, is a complex system, formal complex system. It's emergent, it has emergent properties. It's a combination of several other complex systems that all come together into a unity that we might think of as a body. And then that single human being comes into contact with other human beings, right? First, a man comes into contact with a woman and they're coming together, male and female produces children, and then children, male, female, right, produces a family or a household or I should say a family, and then or a household, I guess a household, and then they're embedded within generations of households, and they're embedded within a society of households, a community of, 100, 150 people, could be a tribe. And then the tribe and the community kind of operate like its own body, and the individual members begin to specialize. And then as you get larger, right, you get to something like a city. And then you have a network of cities, and certain cities specialize. And then those become something like a nation. And then that specializes with respect to sort of other kind of nations, or that level of thing, that level of social organization. And then you kind of pop out, and then different species kind of organize themselves differently, and you pop out another order of magnitude, and then all of the different species come together in sort of another corporate body that we might call all living things, right? Life first, or maybe it's animal life, and then it's like also with plant life and bacteria and all that, and it starts to combine and combine. And then, you sort of get beyond that and you realize that that is all the part of a kind of dynamic ecosystem across the whole world that affects things like, temperature and soil consistency, and, how how forests are shaped, and, things like this, right? And now human beings are starting to have human beings affect the quality of the air. Human beings affect the distribution of certain animals in certain territories, or the shape of mountains, or the recession or increase of glaciers, or something like that, to a certain extent. Not as much as likely climate alarmists would have you believe, but to some extent. Right. But then you can go down and you can go back to the level of the human being, and you can say, well, below the level of the human being, we have like organ systems that kind of cooperate together and help the human being work. And then below them is kind of cellular structures, and those organs are composed of cells, and those cells combine with one another and have sort of localized intelligence. And within cells, you have organelles, and the organelles within the cells kind of operate like organs of the cell. And then, the organelles then have different molecular structures in them that behave and collaborate with one another. And then that goes down to, be on the molecular level to the atomic level, and then to the subatomic level. And even the particles of an atom have relationships to one another that resemble like the solar system and the galaxy and the universe, which is like all the way up, right? And so we have all of these different layers, all of these different orders of magnitude. And all of them happen to have, what do they all have in common with one another? they are all formal complex systems. All of them are formal complex systems with emergent properties that are dynamic, that are dissipative, that then when they combine, you get something like a body. And so, as far as the consciousness thing that is concerned, right, with Ken's point here, is like these different orders of magnitude seem to have a way of communicating with one another. Something like that, right? Not getting like too woo on you guys, but right, basically for all of human history, um, the all of our ancestors have been of the opinion that human beings can receive messages from like the deep, meaning either what is very high, right? They receive messages on high in the form of revelation or something like that, or they receive messages that kind of bubble up, speak to them in dreams, something like that, right? Angels come, messengers, spirits of the deceased, spirits from the underworld, right? Communications from the underworld, the world that is below this one. Why is it below us, right? Well, there's a world that's above us and a world that's below us. And the people who live in each of these realms can somehow speak to us on this plane of existence, right? There are lots of different verbiages or lots of different ways that we can express this idea, but part of I think, it depends what you mean, I guess, by consciousness, but it does seem to be that there is some kind of ability to perceive of certain communications from different realms. That sounds crazy when I say it, right? But like, in a certain sense, pain, right? Pain or hunger or something like that, right? These are in certain ways messages from what is below at the bodily level, right? We're not machines, right? The human body is not a machine. It doesn't necessarily behave like a machine, even though we talk about it in some conditions like a machine. But our body has ways of communicating with some of our higher cognitive functions, and they seem to be separate even though they're combined. So pain seems to be some kind of form of consciousness that is more localized to our body than the consciousness that we think about from our rational mind or our discerning mind or something like that. A different form, more bodily localized, even though it's interconnected. Something like that. And at the same time, right, we can receive kind of, where do dreams come from? What about fantasy? What about daydreaming, right? Where does that come from? Or ideas, right? We don't rationally devise our ideas. The rational mind that thinks or goes through logical processes or sequences or analyzes doesn't devise ideas, like an engineer with building blocks. The ideas kind of happen to us. But is it to say that the idea isn't ours? Where does it come from? What is it that perceives of the idea? What is it that generates the idea? Perhaps some other kind of conscious process within us, a different kind of consciousness within us. Perhaps it's a higher form of consciousness. Is it a lesser form of consciousness? Would you call it lower? What would you call it? I'm not sure. But as far as kind of Ken's idea here, right, we might conceive of, we think of, we are conscious beings. But even as human beings, we have many different layers of the consciousness that we call consciousness. And it may not be exactly appropriate to think about it solely as a unity, right? I mean, part of the idea of thinking of something as both a unity and a plurality is something that, as far as, well, it's central to Christianity. I think it's also in Buddhism to a certain degree, but Christianity, right? The idea of a trinity, something that is both three and one simultaneously. Something that is, yeah, how can something be three and one? How can something be both many and one at the same time? Right? Three being, of course, somehow symbolic of many, right? Being symbolic of many. How can that be, right? Well, we have many limbs, we have many parts to the body, right? We have two legs, we have two arms, we have two hands, we have 10 fingers, we have 10 toes, and yet we're part of a unified body, even though it has different points of articulation. So a body is both many and one. The psyche, too, right? The nervous system, our consciousness is both many and one at the same time. Stands to reason. If we have a body as such that works that way, perhaps we have a mind as well. But in any case, that might be a little bit might be a little too much woo, but yeah, hopefully that gets at some point into what Ken was getting at there. I suppose if there's one, since we're already an hour into this, there is one image here I was working with that I think is a good image just to bring up in terms of like how thinking about some of this stuff, or how thinking about depth, or how thinking about some of these structures can help think about, right, say, dimensions or mindset with respect to trading or investment. So one of the things like that I think helped in terms of depth, or that I think solved this kind of initial problem that I outlined at the beginning of the stream, being kind of spread out all over the place, both in terms of how I was kind of living my life and in terms of what my goals as far as a trader or investor were, are pretty well summarized by what's visualized here versus a general solution in differential equations versus a particular solution. And the way I saw things for a while, right, how I approached things was this kind of unbounded potentiality. And so if you think about this symbol on the left here, maybe I can make this a little bigger for us. Can I make this bigger? No, because I'm editing it. Maybe I can zoom in. That's a little bit better. Kind of. Yeah. So until you set defined goals, right? Until I set defined goals, until you establish some sort of commitment for your investment, right? Because an investment is a commitment, right? That's the idea. To invest is to commit. To invest is to invest not only your capital and resources, but attention. Of course, attention is our most fundamental resource as human beings. Until you do that, the stock market for you, the stock market for me, right? Some of you have experienced this, is the general solution on the left. It's a bunch of potential solutions. And if you think about the top lines, everything above the x-axis here is a stock that's going to be profitable, is a trade that's going to be profitable. And every solution that is below the line is a trade that's not, or an investment that's not. And right, x-axis is something like is time, and then the y-axis is value, let's just say. So this is always happening. This is always going. As you move across time, you're always coming across new potential pathways. You're coming across new investments. You're coming across new potential trades. But until you actually commit to one, all you do is stay at zero. Time moves forward, but even as the x-axis moves forward, as you move across the x-axis, until you pick one, right? Until you commit to a specific path, you just stay at zero. But once you actually commit to something, right? Once you decide, let's see how deep this goes. Let me go down this one path and see where it takes me, right? If you see that opportunity and stick to that one path, that's when you start to see exponential growth. But until you take that path, right? Until you decide to commit to that, right? And part of the right, if you would compare why I say diversify in depth versus say like compare it with diversify in breadth, something like that. A lot of traders will come and they'll take the breadth approach, right? And you can have success with that, right? There are people that do, but the breadth approach is something like, start to go this way, cut. Start to go this way, cut. Start to go this way, cut. Start to go this way, cut, right? And so it's a little bit cut, a little bit cut, a little bit cut, a little bit cut. And with that approach, right, it's extraordinarily difficult with that approach to do something like just beat the inflation curve, otherwise known as the S&P 500, right? Because the S&P 500 just tracks inflation. It's the gains of the S&P 500 since 1980, when they changed the inflation metric, are essentially the same, around 4,500%. So that's just the inflation curve. So why is it important to beat the market plus a little bit? Because taxes. How many traders really do that? How many traders year after year? How many fund managers really do that? Most of them don't. The only real way that you do is if you do something like Berkshire Hathaway, right? And if you look at Berkshire Hathaway, if you look at Buffett and Munger, right? Their approach when they talk about diversifying, their thing is like, diversifying is a great strategy when you don't know what you're doing. When you have no idea what you're doing, when you don't know what you're looking at, when you can't see value, yeah. Diversifying across a whole broad range of stuff across, 500 different companies is a decent idea. But what that results in, right, what we found out with the S&P 500 is inflation, right? You will be able to track inflation is essentially what you'll get, which can be valuable because if, a lot of the rest of society is not investing at all in anything with any strategy, then okay, you'll beat your neighbors or something like that. You will become wealthier, I suppose, at the same time that everyone else's resources kind of decrease. But you won't actually, right? You won't actually add value. Like you'll be wealthier relative to everybody else, but you won't actually like accrue more value in terms of the resources you command. The only way that you can really do that is by stock picking. Right? You have to figure out what the real where real value lies. And of course, right, this is also not only Buffett. This is not only Buffett and Munger, who, right, their whole thing is, right, Berkshire Hathaway got big. Its first stock pick was Geico. They were just like Geico. If you have a winner, why would you stop? Right, this is Buffett talking. If you have a winner, why would you stop investing in your winner? If you know what you have, and you know it's valuable, why would you stop investing in it? If you know it's valuable, if you see the value, if it's right there on paper, doesn't matter how deep it is. If you see that it has deep value, why would you stop investing? Because it's this. If you can put more resources in this, do that. Why take a chance with this? If you're very confident it's going to be this. Yeah, man. Yeah, SPY's. Oh, yeah. By the way, maybe I should talk about that this week. SPY's probably like it. I've been looking at the price momentum oscillator stuff. The longer time frames look bad. It looks like it's going to crash. I don't know how fast, but it looks like we might go bear market, unless Doge dividend. But in any case, right? I would say that Rory Kitty's approach too, by his Reddit name, deep deep value, right? Deep fucking value is something similar. Once you know you got a winner, why walk away, right? Part of the adventure of life is, I suppose, once you put your faith in something, don't stop investing in it, because that becomes the adventure of your life, something like that. So I suppose that's the adventure I'm trying to live. That's what I'm trying to do. That's that's how I'm trying. That's the experiment, I should say. I'm trying to live with my life at this point. And for me, GameStop is a big part of that. For me, talking to you guys and trying this whole thing out with YouTube and trying to figure out how this whole internet thing works is another part of that adventure. If you ask me, I don't know, 3-4 years ago, if I thought I'd be here now, this would be my life. If I would be live streaming, you know, daily GameStop videos from Thailand, as as a trader, like, nope, wouldn't have guessed. Wouldn't have guessed, but here I am. And part of that is committing to deep value when you see it, I guess. So, yeah. So can we at GME trade conversely to the SPY if it falls hard? Okay, interesting. What are our thoughts on market failing? Can small mid caps like us rise or doubtful? I don't know. I mean, the theory, like the deeper theory on GameStop is that if the stock market starts to fall, well, in 2020, it didn't look that way in 2022, 2023, because I guess it made it easier for institutions to enter into short bets, or they have short bets all the time, and that gave them, it allowed them to short GameStop or push GameStop down or something like that, or do stuff with swaps. The original theory, I suppose, on GameStop was that if the market crashed, it would damage the liquidity. It would put the liquidity in jeopardy that the major institutions who are short or bearish GameStop had. It would put that in jeopardy. And so once their liquidity was in jeopardy, then they would be forced to close their GameStop positions. I don't know. I don't know about that, because if we learn anything about, this is what always sad but truthful stuff is really good on the GameStops, or on the GameStop swaps, but the mortgage-backed security swaps. So 2008, 2009, that's what happened. The VW squeeze was tied in with that. Was tied in with the 07 to 09, because it really began in 07. The 07 to 09 market collapse. And what happened when the short institutions who were, I guess it'd be the opposite. So the market crashed. They were long on mortgage-backed securities. Right. They were long the housing market. They shouldn't have been. It was artificially propped up. What happened there was, well, they lost, and so then they packaged them into swaps and kicked them down the road to 2034. So they're going to explode then, but if things go too bad, they'll just cheat, and then I don't know. I guess right. So like Burry's shorts did print, but basically, like, they don't exactly explain this, right? Like at the end of with the bailouts, right? At the end of The Big Short, it's like, yeah, the bailouts are kind of annoying, but it's not just the bailouts. It's like they got the bailouts and then they froze the whole housing market collapse thing, so that everybody who actually had the mortgages, their mortgages collapsed. Like they had to go into foreclosure. They lost their houses and such. But the banks got propped up by taxpayer money, but then the actual bad bets that the banks had didn't get unwound. They just got frozen in swaps, and they're still frozen. They're still out there somewhere in the ether, sitting on somebody's books as a 25-year swap. So if we crash, like if the market goes into the crash that we actually probably should have, and this is an interesting thing too. It's possible that the market should have gone into a crash in 2020 anyway, regardless of COVID. I remember, you know, I try not to. Peter Schiff is kind of a perma bear, but I remember him saying back in like 2018, 2019 that he was like, yeah, basically there's going to be actually, way back in like 2015, 2016, um, back when like Trump was first elected, that like there was going to be that eventually that like the whatever happened with '08 would have to unwind. And then he thought Trump would come in 2016, 2017 and do something different than what was done prior. And then he, might do something to unwind the mortgage-backed security thing. And Trump essentially didn't and just continued with the same Fed policy as before. And then Biden, of course, continued with it as before. I remember it's like the whole money print thing. We basically got like bailout, whatever it was. We got like bailout 2.0. So a lot of the money printing in COVID, and if you want to get super conspiracy theory, you can be like, was the COVID crash engineered to stop the market from crashing? I don't know, right? But the market shouldn't have reversed as quickly as it did. That was pulled out, right? So like knowing that the S&P tracks inflation, knowing that it's just inflation. Inflation was jacked up purposefully to save the economy and whatever, and bail out the make sure the average home investor make sure people can pay their bills. No, prop up the S&P 500. Prop up the S&P 500. If you just look at the money supply expansion, we have not hit. So money's roughly doubled. We have not hit a doubling of the S&P 500 since before all that money was printed. So we're not quite there. So that suggests that there's still lag in all of the money that's been printed, and all of the money supply expansion that hasn't fully worked its way into the S&P 500 yet. So it would suggest that we actually still have not reattained the pre-COVID high in terms of what the actual value of the S&P 500. Like one share of the S&P 500 was more valuable in, let's say, January 2020 than it is now. Even though the notional dollar amount of a share of the S&P right now is, 50, 60% higher than it was then. So that was like that was a crash, but it's like been disguised by all of the money that's been printed. But then, maybe there's going to be maybe there'll be a real crash where the price continues to unwind. Don't know. Tough to say, but good question. Yeah. Good question. In any case, so that's I think what we'll probably wrap up for today. I hope you guys found this interesting. I'll experiment with some different times. Maybe I'll have to wait until I get back to Europe or the US or something like that to make this a recurring, irregular thing. But we'll see. I'll keep you guys posted. You guys can expect this week. Of course, we'll have video to pre-market. Of course, tomorrow, around whatever. I guess I get the video posted. I'm done recording usually around 3. It's usually up by about 3, 9. So it's usually up by about 9:30. So video breakdowns coming this week. Friday we'll have our end of week live stream again. So yeah, and then we'll see about maybe doing another one of these, something maybe a little bit more focused. Maybe we can do something like regenesis or something like that, which is good. You want to talk about creation, the idea of creation and creating value, like that's at the foundation of Western civilization there, and of everything that we live in. So that might be a good idea, something for us to do. So, okay, everybody, thank you very much. Thank you very much, as always, for your questions, comments, everything you guys contribute on a regular basis, whether it be here or for those of you who follow me over on X. So, very, very happy to have you guys in house, and yeah, we'll see you. We'll see you tomorrow. We'll see you for tomorrow's video as we yeah, take a look at the GME open interest data for tomorrow. So thanks a lot, guys. We'll see you. We'll see you then.